Hi everybody, Dacob here. Welcome back to the Fragrant Bunker. I am in the 90s. I am in the Fashion Perfume Bunker 90s salon where we get to experiment and experience perfumes, and we're going to do a top 10 90s fragrances. Now, I've done this video actually over a year ago, but let's see if my mood has changed, if the zhuzh has changed, if the vibe has changed. If I were to pick my top 90s fragrances today, what would they be? I'm coincidentally wearing the same shirt like I did in the last video. That we have a little bit of continuity there. So a lot of people have enjoyed that video, have told me I want to see more. So let's dive deeper into this. 1.5 years later, are we still going to pick the same perfumes from the 90s, or has our nostril olfactory sensational vibe or feeling the world changed? Well, first, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. You can also join me on Patreon, superdacob all spelled together for extra perks. Thank you to my patrons who have already pledged. This video is being filmed live, actually, in front of my main channel YouTube members and patrons. So they get to see this first, and then you guys see it a couple of weeks later, coming to my Essentially Dacob perfume channel. The first one, listen, it's a no-brainer. It is one of the loves of my life. And yes, of course, actually interesting to compare the two videos. If you go and watch my first selections, my first top 10s for the 90s, is it in that video as well? I can tell you, spoiler alert, yes, it is. And of course we have Dolce & Gabbana, and I mean, can we talk? Yes, we got the sticker Euroitalia version. This is an actual tester from Euroitalia. It has all of the ingredients listed in the back. Super fascinating, the love of my life. This is the Fougère to end all Fougères. It's been a synthetic back in the day. It's still a synthetic today, but the tester from Euroitalia made in Italy lists top notes: bergamot, tangerine, orange, and lemon. Mid notes lists lavender, clary sage. Love that clary sage. Tarragon. Love the tarragon. Cardamom and black pepper. The bottom notes list sandalwood, cedarwood, tonka beans, and musk. What can I tell you? The love of my life. Oh, man. And interesting how no tobacco is listed in the notes, even in the Euroitalia version. So, yes, in the 90s advertisements, sometimes also in the newspapers or fashion magazines that would report about perfumes, there was talk about tobacco being in here, or the tobacco leaf, or the tobacco bloom, but it's not listed on the list even on the Euroitalia version, even though this one was reformulated during the Euroitalia stages as well. So there's an Euroitalia first edition, and then there's an Euroitalia second edition, and then it went to Procter & Gamble, made in Germany, Procter & Gamble, made in the UK, then it went to Shiseido, or what's it called? The Prestige BPI, made in France version. And now apparently Dolce & Gabbana took the distribution into their own hands because they've left Prestige International and they've went back to themselves. Not Euroitalia though, but apparently the newer batches are made in Italy again. I haven't tested the newest ones yet, but I do have the made in France Shiseido version. I love it. Now, of course, it's not the OG. Only the OG is the OG. But I'm very curious to sniff out the newest version of Dolce & Gabbana's Pour Homme post-Shiseido era. Just gorgeous. This thing, it catapults me back into the 90s in a way, like, it just makes me live the grungy phase all over again. It makes me live the Madonna take a bow phase all over again, the Madonna bedtime stories phase all over again. It makes me live the Dolce & Gabbana era where Domenico Dolce, Stefano was always marketing, but Domenico did the most incredible clothes inspired by his Sicily, because he comes from Sicily, and that whole widow Sicilian chic look, femme fatale, with the animalier print combined with the black colors. I mean, the historic Dolce & Gabbana vibes, we know what that means. That combined with this, like you're in another world. I mean, the time travel potential is beyond powerful. I mean, you put on one of those vintage Dolce & Gabbana outfits, and we're talking early to late 90s, not later than that, because after that, Dolce & Gabbana lost me. But we're talking late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, Dolce & Gabbana. And then this perfume that came out in 1994, heaven, heaven. And of course, if you're going to wear the Dolce & Gabbana maculato and their sunglasses, and you're going to feel that vibe, you're going to need to go for the original as well. The first perfume that they ever released. Yes, also a 90s beauty, a 90s baby, is the Dolce & Gabbana Perfume Fingerprint Magnet. There's like no way of cleaning this up as much as I try. It always has the fingerprints on it. So this is the Shiseido version. I do also have the Euroitalia version, which is to die for. But something very interesting happened to this. I bought this when Shiseido took over the distribution of Dolce & Gabbana, right? And this one was discontinued for a long time. The Dolce & Gabbana Perfume Eau de Toilette has nothing to do with Eau de Parfum. We know. The marshmallow in the Eau de Parfum, it doesn't have anything to do with the original. So forget about the Eau de Parfum. The Eau de Parfum Dolce & Gabbana, it's like a completely different perfume. But the Eau de Toilette was discontinued after Procter & Gamble left and Shiseido took over. There was a period when you could not find the Eau de Toilette anywhere. When Shiseido took over and started remaking the Eau de Toilette, the cap turned to this transparent red. It's not a milky red like it used to be with Euroitalia, but the design of the bottle is the same. And I did buy a fresh batch, almost 2 years ago, when they just started producing them. And I bought backups immediately because, you know, you never know. You're never safe enough when it comes to Dolce & Gabbana because they can keep changing and discontinue at any time. And I purchased 2 of these fresh batches just made, right? And so I started using them and I unboxed the first one and I was like, oh, this is very Lily of the Valley heavy. This is not like that sandalwood, musky, deep, dirty, almost pissy accord that we're used to smelling from the OG. And it definitely is very strong in the aldehydes. It gives you that soapy, clean, fresh washed linens drying in the Sicilian sun outside of your little cottage in the middle of nowhere with the crickets chirping in the background. Sure, gives you all of that, but very Lily of the Valley heavy. Now that 2 years have, more or less 2 years have passed, first of all, the liquid has turned darker. So there is vanilla in here. And it has ripened. That Lily of the Valley is much more toned down now. Now that 2 years have passed since I've got this beauty, of course I have the green screen on so you don't really see just how incredibly like it's turning that darker golden ambery color again. Because when I first got it, the liquid was yellow, but it was more towards that light yellow, almost transparent liquid color. Now it's getting to that color that we're used to from vintage Dolce & Gabbana. Obviously, those are vintage bottles by now, so all the musks and the sandalwood and the vanilla in there have turned very dark. So obviously if you get a vintage juice, it's going to look orange, ambery, golden orange. But this one is turning that color too. And boy, oh boy, it's ripening, it's deepening. You know what? A best. Let me just... Oh... I mean, sure, it is more synthetic. Listen, Dolce & Gabbana perfumes were synthetic from the get-go. It's not like we're talking about these crazy natural fragrances from the 90s. They were synthetic from the get-go. But this is a made in France Shiseido version. And the vanilla has ripened. The powdery notes are kind of coming up there. They didn't use any exceptional sandalwood in here. You know, it's lacking that little bit of depth that the OG used to have. But it has kind of become more appropriate for the times today. It's a lighter version of itself. It carries really very well. It doesn't last too long on the skin, but It is so beautiful. I adore how this is aging. It's aging delicately. It's literally, because it's made in France, it almost makes you feel like, oh yeah, this is the French take on Dolce & Gabbana. It's like they've stripped it of that potential tackiness that some Italian designs might have, and it's kind of given it more that snobby French attitude, which in perfumery can be really good if done right. It's gorgeous. And here's a little tip from me to you. If you want to get a bit more depth in here, I layer it with Chanel number 22. First, spray on Chanel number 22, eau de parfum. Let it rest for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, and then just do 1 or 2 spritzes of this on top and let that then cool down. The two combined are going to give you depth. If you want the depth, you're going to get it there. It's, yeah, like in the chats, Jesus is saying it's like a slutty number 5. I mean, it's definitely giving the Italian version of a Chanel number 5. Interesting how then, you know, Shiseido manufactured this in France again, and then kind of it's almost like Euroitalia did the Italian version of Chanel number 5, but then France took it back, and now they did something else. So it's not really Chanel number 5-esque anymore to me, to my nose. But it is something you've never smelled before. I mean, it's very, very unique. I am very much looking forward to smelling the version of Dolce & Gabbana Eau de Toilette now that they have left Shiseido, and now that they're producing apparently again in Italy. But apparently Euroitalia is not making their perfumes. So I don't know who's the manufacturer of their perfumes. I've kind of been checking on Amazon. One Amazon post states that some German manufacturer is making their perfumes, but they're distributed through Italy and they're made in Italy. It's all very shady for now. I have no clue. I'll do some more digging, but I'm really looking forward to smelling the updated version of the Eau de Toilette. I love the made in France Eau de Toilette. I do have my 2 bottles. Now they're out of production. So if you like your made in France Dolce & Gabbana pour femme, now is the time to stock up, because you can only buy leftover stock. It's no longer in production in France. They have a reformulated version, apparently made in Italy. But don't quote me on that. The next one that I adore from the 90s, unfortunately, very, very misunderstood fragrance when it was first released. It was a huge success in Europe, but it was not even close to a success in the United States of America. And this is why this brand very quickly jumped and did a reformulation. Well, not a reformulation. They re-released it as a flanker. Also in the 90s, the flanker is not as good as the OG. And the OG would be Chanel's Egoiste, the Eau de Toilette. So I do have here the OG spray packaging as well, with the wooden lid, which kind of looks like the first release, which was the Bois Noir. Bois Noir was the name of this perfume when it was a boutique exclusive, and then it was renamed quickly to Egoiste and launched, worldwide. But it kept the Bois Noir, the black wood stopper or the lid, so you can see it has the texture of wood. And this particular design of bottle and stopper or lid has been discontinued in favor of this version, which is the current one we can find today. So it's kind of like a mattified metallic, lacquered with mattified black on top. This is the design of the Splash Egoiste bottles from the 90s, albeit with the wooden pattern. But the shape of the bottle was used for the splash. Now Chanel has turned the splash bottle design into the spray bottle design, and this is the only design we can find still in production today. Eau de Toilette, 100 ml with this stopper. So I adore Egoist, and I really enjoy this current formulation. By the way, the batch code of the one I have is 7902. So this one was made in the late 2022. It gives a slight smokiness to, you know what? Since this is a sandalwood heavy fragrance, and since the Dolce & Gabbana Pour Femme kind of went down in the sandalwood, let's mix the two together. And throughout I'm going to spray a little bit more Dolce & Gabbana here. And I'm going to add a little bit of Egoist. And let's see how the sandalwood in here blends in with the Dolce & Gabbana. Because the Dolce & Gabbana is also an aldehyde fragrance, like every Chanel perfume is as well. So let's just blend them together and... Okay, Egoist is stronger than Dolce & Gabbana, so let's add from a distance a bit more Dolce & Gabbana on top. We're building a recipe here. You never know, right? It's all about... Oh, it's getting creamy. Oh, this is good. Let's let it simmer. Let's let it simmer on the oven while we talk about the next one. Well, actually, let me finish off Egoist. A gorgeous sandalwood accord. It is very androgynous. I know perfumes know no gender, but Egoist, you know, after all the powerhouse fragrances from the 80s, Egoist kind of blasted the 80s out of the ballpark and catapulted us into a softer version of masculinity. It wasn't that kind of aggressive, screechy, in-your-face masculine perfume anymore. This is more a man in touch with his emotions. This is more a man that is not afraid to feel his emotions, to show his softer side to his partner. So this is really, really, really a gorgeous perfume for rediscovering your more soft emotional self. So, which is coincidentally also something that a lot of the artistic and musical, but also movie trends started in the 90s and the whole grunge movement. I mean, you know, we could say that Nirvana and Kurt Cobain were like kind of aggressive in their music and the way that they would scream and sing. But interesting also to see Kurt Cobain, for example, in the 90s, you know, wearing the cardigans, the more feminine cardigans and Angora and kind of the plushy ones and, you know, the more long hair, the softer facial features, cozy t-shirts. You know, we're not doing that, let me show off me and my cabriolet anymore, driving to the golf club with my polo shirt or a sweater tied around and with my moccasin shoelets as I'm going places. No, this is a more softer, toned down man that has maybe more issues. But why does he have more issues? Because he's finally confronting his emotions. He's confronting all the issues of growing up, like all the issues that he's had to bury deep down inside, right? So, egoist, the name also says it. It's an egotist. It's somebody who says, you know what, finally it's about me and I'm going to try to figure out what's wrong with me. Amazing. I love Egoist. Such a beautiful perfume. Now, speaking of men discovering their softer side, another exceptional example of 90s perfumery within that softer range, and in fact, a gay man was used to advertise that perfume. By the way, we could make a whole 10-hour, 20-hour live stream about how amazing ad campaigns were in the 90s for perfumes, how the video ads were amazing. We're never going to see that form of artistry again, you guys. I mean, the adverts that we have in video form, also in photographic form for perfumes nowadays are subpar, to say the least. They are terrible, you know, but the 90s delivered. Egoist's video ad campaign was one of the most beautifully shot and conceptually challenging ads out there, with the dude, with all the women in that house somewhere in the south of France opening, you know, the windows and egoist, screaming, and only one window is shut and the egoist guy is living there. He's had every woman in that house, but now he's not in the palace, but now he's kind of retreated to just being on his own to figure his shit out because he's a very problematic character. Oh, to die for. Now, that softness of kind of rediscovering yourself was also delivered through one of these gay actors that was utilized as a model for the ad campaign for none other than, well, it was Rupert Everett, by the way, a hunk from the 90s. He was really, really gorgeous in the 90s, and he was one of those rare actors who was openly gay and live in Ferret, and opened a lot of doors for a lot of other gay actors or musicians to just kind of be themselves. He is also a problematic character. We've all heard rumors surrounding him as well. Not the best kind, but it is what it is. Back then, when I saw him laying on that kind of bed, satin silky sheets with a bathrobe on and dark purple silk opening up, and like he's completely naked underneath, and he's twirling around. Linda Evangelista was his counterpart in that ad campaign for the female version of the perfume. But the male version of the perfume we're talking about is Opium pour Homme by Yves Saint Laurent. I mean, this is Dior de Parfum. I always recommend getting Dior de Parfum. This has been discontinued in the refillable form with the plastic shell. So now some countries, France still has it. They still do Dior de Parfum. Got a couple of drops left here. They still do the eau de parfum in France, but it is then sold like this without the plastic container. So you can just get it as a naked little glass bottle. Still gorgeous. Opium pour Homme, eau de parfum. One of the loves of my life. There is such a special vanilla in here that delivers a type of warmth that I have only experienced in the 90s. You do not get this vanilla today. You get other vanillas. You get wonderful vanillas today. You get beautiful vanillas today. But it's not this vanilla. This vanilla, especially when blended in with the spicy notes that are kind of opening this fragrance, the peppery notes, the black currant, you get a very, very interesting fragrance that starts off very manly and in your face, almost like business attire. I am the boss of you, powerhouse. It starts off that way and it's reminiscent of the 80s. But before you know it, this is the beauty of this perfume. It just kind of switches on you and it becomes soft, inviting, tame, alluring. Nice, again, a man in touch with his emotions and that is not afraid to show emotions. Oh, this is so beautiful, so beautiful. Man, I mean, I wish they would still distribute the eau de parfum worldwide, because the eau de toilette is okay, but the problem with the eau de toilette is it's a little bit too peppery. And it stays screechy, there's way less of the vanilla, of the softer, musky, woody accords that are in the dry down. The eau de toilette doesn't deliver much of that. It stays in the surface. It stays spicy. It stays screechy. It doesn't really go warm as the eau de parfum does. And it really needs to go warm in order for it to be understood fully, like anybody. Only when you become warm and you open up to somebody can somebody really get a chance to understand and get to know you better for who you truly are. Interesting also to note that Opium pour Homme was one of the first fragrances massively targeted for men in the eau de parfum form, because up until that point, don't forget, most perfumes for men were eau de toilette and cologne. There was no eau de parfum. Eau de parfum was kind of segregated to female marketing only. But Yves Saint Laurent came out with an eau de parfum for men. And this was their main advertisement campaign showed the eau de parfum, not the eau de toilette. So this is the bottle you would see in the ad campaigns with Rupert Everett. It was like they were pushing the concept of a man can also wear eau de parfum. So this was very groundbreaking for the time. Oh my God, this thing is warming up like heaven. Speaking of really warm vanilla, you want to take it there? Should we really go deep into vanilla? Well then, the deepest vanilla, drenched in bitter almond oil and almond milk, would be the one and only glass bottle covered in rubber, almost as if it was an SM commercial. You've guessed it. It's the OG Hypnotic Poison. I do have here the original bottle, rubberized, all covered in rubber. And it has that warm feeling, that fuzzy, fuzzy, warm feeling about it. So wait, I have to cover my face so you can actually see it. And there it is, in all its glory. Oh my God. Yeah. Take me away, honey, and see ya. Seriously. Oh. The original Hypnotic Poison by Anik Menardo, right? I think it was Anik. Oh my gosh. It's just like that milky, syrupy, hypnotizing accord and that vanilla with the bitter almonds playing together, seducing you, calling you in. And the fact that they designed this bottle with the rubber around it so that when you touch it, it's warm. When you touch glass, it's cold to the touch. But they wanted a bottle that once you touch it, you immediately feel warmth, as if the juice inside was emanating that warmth from the inside. Hence why the rubberized bottle. And I do wish Dior would still rubberize their bottles, but I guess they want to, LVMH wants to save money. They don't want to invest big money in creating this gorgeous rubberized effect, but it really needs that to give you the vibe of warmth. It's so beautiful to touch. It's such a beautiful object also. The bottle is gorgeous and the perfume is gorgeous. So Hypnotic Poison comes at a time again where vanilla is being rediscovered. We're going warm places, as you can see with the Dolce & Gabbana, with the Opium pour Homme. It's the Dolce & Gabbana pour Femme, I mean, not the Fougère version for men. And it's taking us to a place where I believe when it comes to Dior, this has been like kind of the highlight. Only maybe possibly topped in the early 2000s with Addict. Not saying that Addict is better or worse than Hypnotic Poison, but topped in terms of iconography, like being an iconic, warm fragrance. Addict is very, very prominently warm that way. Even though if we look nowadays at how Dior fragrances are selling, Hypnotic Poison is still very popular. And that's why Dior still sells the entire kind of, not the entire range, but a quite substantial range. You can get the body cream, body lotion, the shower gel. You can get the deodorant, the roll-on stick in oil, the eau de parfum, the eau de toilette. Like, that tells us that this one is still a bestseller. While Addict, they've reduced it to kind of the minimum amount of products that go with Addict, which shows us that Addict has not withstood the test of time as much as Hypnotic Poison in terms of sales at Dior, allegedly. Of course, everything I say in this video is for entertainment purposes only, just my opinion. Everything's alleged, not rooted in any truths or facts. But that's just my opinion. But this one comes at a time where many brands, perfume brands, have been pushing the vanilla, the warmth, the fuzziness, that kind of the sexiness. Tom Ford at Gucci also hyper-sexualized everything, but at the same time, make it warm, make it alluring, make it kind of call you in, referencing beautiful shapes from the past and reinventing them for the 90s future. And Dior perfumes, they were masterful at that by creating Hypnotic Poison, because Hypnotic Poison really kind of smells like a link between everything that we think was aesthetically beautiful and appeasing from the past, but reinvented for the present. So it's a masterpiece of a perfume. And I mean, the 90s, right? The 90s. Now, we cannot speak about the 90s without talking about one of the biggest exponents of the 90s in terms of fashion and also in terms of fragrance. And it's another masterpiece. And this time, it's a lady. And we have here Classique by Jean-Paul Gaultier. I just want to say this is the Eau de Toilette, which I adore. I also like and have, actually right here, the can with the pure perfume. But the Eau de Parfum is still in production today. The pure perfume is not. So let's show something that you can actually still purchase today. I do prefer the Eau de Toilette to the Eau de Parfum. You pull the knob here. And what can I tell you? You open yourself to a vanilla. There you go again. That vanilla. Look how the juice turns dark with time, how it ripens. It's because of the vanilla. Again, a 90s masterpiece that delivers vanilla. It delivers a makeup accord. You know, Gaultier, when he talks about this perfume, he says, oh, he loved going to the theater when he was a little kid with his grandma. He loved the smell of his grandma's makeup, and he loved the smell of going to the theater, also to the opera, ballet, to the cabaret, and to just smell the residue of makeup on the stage, you know, on that wood. It's kind of like it's almost ingrained itself into the wood of the stage. And he would love to smell that makeup-y, powdery accord emanating from the stage. And he wanted to deliver that vibe in this. And he managed. He definitely managed, because it gives us old school vibes. I know we haven't lived, well, some of us have. If we're vampires, we know. But, you know, if you're talking about the 1800s, towards the end of the 1800s, the early 1900s, but like the late 1800s, the cabarets, the dancing salons in Paris, there was a vibe to that. Now, obviously, we haven't lived then, or have we? Some vampires might have, that are still alive today, but it gives you, this perfume smells of that time. And you can ask yourself, well, how is it possible that if you haven't lived in that era, how can a perfume remind you of an era you've never lived in? Well, this is where I say perfumes are magical, because in my humble opinion, they are keys that unlock memories in your DNA and patterns. You know, who's to say that our great-grandmother ancestors haven't lived that, and they transmit to us memory, DNA memory. It's not just a memory of things that we have experienced ourselves on our own skin and in our own lives, but it is also a memory that is connected to the memories of our ancestors. I believe in that. And when the right perfume comes your way, it will unlock a particular memory. And yes, it is possible for me. In my opinion, it is possible that you can remember stuff from what your ancestors experienced by smelling a perfume that triggers said DNA or said buried memory inside of your soul. I'm not talking about reincarnation and having lived several lives. Some people believe in that as well. I'm talking about literally the memory that you unlock inside of yourself of a memory that your ancestors have experienced on their own self through positive or negative trauma that has embedded itself into the roots of the soul and DNA. And then future generations can also feel that memory. They can also remember a memory of their ancestors. Isn't that beautiful? And I do believe that perfumes have that power, which is one of the biggest reasons why I adore perfumes so much and why I'm always hunting for them and want to re-smell them and re-sniff them all over again. Sometimes I don't even spray the perfume on during the day, but I just want to, lift it, sniff it a little bit, get the vibe and then move on, because obviously you can't wear 50 perfumes every day. I mean, you could, but So I wear a few every day, but then others I just sniff. And Classique by Jean-Paul Gaultier delivers that vibe completely to me. It takes me places. Oh, divine. And yes, that is the vanilla version of Gautier. And then in 1995, interesting how the next perfume, also Gautier, obviously, is this one. Interesting how Le Male, again, for Le Male, I want to say we're just going with the Eau de Toilette. It's my favorite. It's the first one that was released in the 90s, 1995. Coincidentally, also the best one. Francis Kurkdjian is the nose behind this one. This is a fougere. Interesting how Le Male also has vanilla in it. It is fougere and it is lavender, 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 and vanilla. But why does a lavender, and Francis Kurkdjian's masterpiece, in my humble opinion, still to this day, the best perfume he ever made. Like, I know he was only 25 years old back then, and since then he's become super famous. He's now the artistic director for the perfumes of Dior as of 2023. But to me, as much as I love Eau Noire and Cologne Blanche from Dior, Francis has never topped himself with this one. This is his first perfume, and it is the one that he's going to have to live up to his entire life. And Baccarat Rouge, don't even come to me with Baccarat Rouge. That thing is a monstrosity. You know, it's a perfume that somehow made it into mainstream and on social media. And you know, everybody's a lemming. And, you know, they see some influencer wear and then they want to try it as well. And they kind of convince themselves that they love it. The Baccarat Rouge ain't it. Sorry. So anyway, he never topped himself after this one. But this one, Le Male, in reality, follows the footsteps that have been already paved before by Dolce & Gabbana, Pour Homme. Because this one delivers that lavender. This one starts the whole softer, fougere, the man in touch with his emotions vibe. That lavender. So this one is given more credit today. But this one follows these footsteps. So let's give credit where credit is due. Dolce & Gabbana Pour Homme is literally a game changer in the fougere realm in the 90s. And this is a beautiful iteration of a lavender accord. It is to die for. I love them both for different reasons, but let's not forget, this one follows that one. The next perfume is fascinating because it's kind of connected and again follows the footsteps of Dolce & Gabbana. So one note I forgot to mention in Dolce & Gabbana Pour Femme, and this one was released in the early 90s. This one was already in the works in the late 80s. But there's a note in here, or an accord in here, that you might not know is there, but it is there in the mid-notes. And that would be a very particular accord that makes a perfume smell sexual, post-coital in a way, dirty in the best way possible. And that would be the marigold. The marigold flower is prominently featured in Dolce & Gabbana Pour Femme. And guess what perfume takes from that and further develops that post-coital accord and smell? You guessed it, it's the one and only Boudoir by Vivienne Westwood. Look at that vanilla. Again, we got the vanilla, and the vanilla makes this juice go so ambery and honey dark. The original juice color is like bubblegum pink or a rosy pink. I mean, it is loaded with roses as well, but there's a tobacco accord in here. There's the heavy marigold in here. The hay, the bubblegum accord as well. Divine. Divine. Vel says, Baccarat Rouge is atrocious. Thank you. We agree. It's terrible. In the chat, in the live chat. Okay. Vivienne Westwood's boudoir is literally a symbol of freedom of expression. Another 90s beast mode perfume that once you spray it on, it lasts for 2 days on my skin. I mean, this is intense. Lancaster used to distribute and manufacture boudoir, but then Vivienne changed distribution to Coty. So the last iterations of boudoir were by Coty, but it is no longer in production. Coty does no longer make Vivienne Westwood perfumes, so this one has skyrocketed on the secondhand market since its discontinuation. Prices have gone amok. I mean, when I tell you 50 ml bottle for like $300 to $600 and $700, like that's insane. That's insane. It used to be almost a cheapie. I know at the end of its life, when the last stock was being sold, that was kind of produced but didn't have really distribution anymore, you could get a bottle for like $20, $30. And I warned you back then. I said, now is the time. Jump on the wagon. Get as many bottles as you can if you like boudoir. Because before you know it, this thing is going to become a rarity and it's going to become super expensive. And now we are at that phase where it's super expensive. However, if we compare my video now to the video that I shot last time, and boudoir was, spoiler alert, also in the other video, Vivienne Westwood was still alive when I shot the other video. Vivienne Westwood unfortunately passed away in December of 2022. Vivienne was one of the reasons why Coty stopped production of boudoir. Why? Because she worked on the production of boudoir with Lancaster, with the perfumer, and she worked several years on this. She really made a perfume she loved. I worked with Vivienne Westwood. We shot a movie together called Art Lovers Unite, which is having worldwide distribution right now as I film this video. And when I filmed with Vivienne the documentary that we shot together, she smelled of boudoir. And I said, Vivienne, are you wearing boudoir? And she said, yes, I always wear boudoir. So that's a beautiful memory that I have of her. She loved her perfume. She wore her perfume even after Coty stopped distribution. Why was she the culprit, allegedly, of the stopping of distribution of the perfume? Because what Coty did, Coty wanted to make money. To make money, they have to kind of release new perfumes all the time. So they were paying, I guess, the Vivienne Westwood company royalties, and then they would be releasing, on a yearly basis, a new perfume. Let It Rock, Anglomania, Mon Boudoir, Boudoir Garden, Sin Garden, Alice, Cheeky Alice. I mean, there was a lot of perfumes. Before you knew it, there was a ton of flankers and a ton of perfumes. Vivienne allegedly didn't even know about this. She had no say in the matter. She didn't work on the development of these perfumes. So when she found out one day, as she drove her bicycle to World's End in London, King's Road, saw the perfume standing there next to the cash register, she's like, what is this? I'm paraphrasing here, of course. And everything's alleged. Sniffed them, hated them, literally took them with her from the shop, stole her own perfumes. You gotta love Viv. Went back to the offices, probably was very upset and said, I didn't approve of this. This does not represent me. This doesn't smell like anything I would like. This is terrible. She was also giving an interview several years after that about her perfume, where you can still find the interview on YouTube, where they ask her about perfume. She says, I made one perfume I liked, that's Boudoir, and I would love to make a new one, but don't buy the other shit. She spoke about her own brand, right? She said, don't buy the others. The other ones are total crap. Don't buy them. Don't waste your money. She was amazing. So because she took all those samples, all the testers away and spoke to her team, the team probably spoke to Coty and said, hey, we would like to just keep manufacturing Boudoir, not the other perfumes, not the other flankers. And at this point, you can imagine what Coty might have answered, allegedly. They probably said, honey, boo-boo-cha, we can't make enough money if we just keep one perfume in production, and this perfume isn't a bestseller. So you either let us keep revamping the perfumes, releasing new ones and flankers all the time. Otherwise, sorry, it's not worth it for us. And that's why they allegedly cut their connection. And that's when the contract stopped. And that's why we have nothing now. We don't have boudoir anymore, and we don't have the flankers either. But now that Vivienne Westwood has passed away, I have a sneaky suspicion that we might be getting boudoir again soon. Probably reformulated and probably with another contract where whoever is the distributor of it will be making flankers and other perfumes as well. So take it with a pinch of salt, all of this. Obviously, everything's alleged, but think about it this way. Do we want to have boudoir at any cost? But we have it, still in production, even though possibly reformulated and watered down. Or do we want to follow Vivienne's wish to just, if it can't just be the one boudoir that she worked on personally, then she doesn't want anything at all. It's a tricky call because I want people to experience boudoir. It's a beautiful perfume, but at the same time, I want to honor her wishes. It's like, what do you do? It's like you lose either way. You know, if you stop making it, secondhand prices are going to skyrocket. It's going to become really impossible to get. But then if you start making it again, either you can find a perfume distributor that's going to say, yeah, okay, I agree. Let's just do one perfume and let's not do any others. But I don't know of any perfume house that does that for a mass release product. You might have to go niche. Maybe, you know, the Westwood team can try to go niche. Maybe they can find a way to distribute this differently. I hope they find a way to distribute it differently, but I would really, really hope that they would also respect Vivienne's wishes. You know, this is the only perfume she worked on. And this is the one she loved. And so just make this one in her honor. Why expand? I don't know. But politics of the companies, you know, very different, and they change a lot and shift a lot. So even the Chanel fashion house makes perfumes that are released after Coco's passing. So maybe it's not a bad thing to produce more Vivienne Westwood perfumes, but I kind of know already in my gut feeling that she would not approve. You know, Coco maybe would have approved. But Vivienne, I don't know if she would have approved. Tyler says, I think they should do a niche release, make a very if you know type of moment. Yeah, but then they should just stay in production, you know, and not just do it like a one-off. And then again, it would become super rare. And again, it would become super expensive secondhand. So like, it's difficult. It's tricky, but it's a masterpiece of a perfume. One, not just a masterpiece of the 90s, but a masterpiece of perfumery in general. The next one is also a masterpiece of perfumery in general, highly synthetic. And here we have a tuberose accord. Cacharel, baby, Cacharel. And it is translucent now because I'm using a green screen. So this is a green bottle. It's not L'Eau. It's not Eden L'Eau. They also did do a flanker. L'Eden, oh no, this is Eden, the first one, the green one. Highly synthetic concoction, the Garden of Eden. What a masterpiece. Mr. Guichat is the nose behind this one. Eden is an overripe garden where the fruits in paradise are over-ripening because Adam and Eve are just two people, but they have a whole planet full of ripe fruits just for them, ready for the picking. You can't eat all of that to save your life. So all of that Garden of Eden fruit starts becoming overripe and starts fermenting. Right in that moment, right before the fruits become overripe and rancid, they're still really good, but they're just at the peak of over-ripening. That's when Guichat catches the moment and delivers the perfume. This perfume smells of an overly ripe Garden of Eden. This thing is a masterpiece, very intense. The reformulation is still really good. Thank goodness Cacharel is still producing this one. My tip to you, and I'm going to do it right now because I have shorts on, so I'm going to spray it behind my knee. So I'm not going to lift my leg up because I can't lift it that far. I am not Dita Fontees after all. but I sprayed it just behind the knee. In the heats of summer, you're wearing a short skirt. Yeah, this is very unisex to me. You wear a short skirt or shorts, you know, something to have the knee bare, right? To not cover the knee with pants or a long skirt. And then you sprayed behind the knee. So it's far away from the nose and it just kind of creeps up on your body towards your nostrils. That's the right way to wear Eden. Do not wear it on your neck. You're going to get nauseous. It's so intense. You need that distance. You need to allow those flowers and that tuberose to bloom as it's creeping up on you. Oh my gosh. I'm getting wafts of it. It is divine. Seriously divine. This one also has vanilla in it, but it's about the patchouli. It's more about the patchouli tuberose accord in here, you know. It's highly synthetic. It's a synthetic 90s perfume, but it's so indicative of the 90s. Nothing else smells like this, and no other perfumes ever smelled more like the 90s to me now that we're in the 2023 era. You know, when you kind of collect all of these fragrances and have them in front of you and you're kind of going back and sniffing at them, you realize, okay, yeah, Eden is the one that in the most abstract way delivers the 90s. And when I say abstract, I mean almost like a science fiction movie. And the 90s have had their fair share of science fiction and adventure movies. Jurassic Park was released in the 90s. One of the loves of my life. But The Fifth Element by Luc Besson. Now, I know that Jean-Paul Gaultier did all the costumes. So technically, we could say that The Fifth Element smells of Le Male and Classique. And in a way, it does. In a way, I can totally smell Classique and Le Male when I watch The Fifth Element. But because it's a science fiction movie, and because we have this weird vision of people entrapped always in either in spaceships or traveling through space, but never really seeing nature. But when we do see nature, it's a synthetic nature. It's a nature that is kind of enclosed, encapsulated in something that is constructed by aliens or mankind, but not nature. That synthetic nature, it's Eden. So Eden smells of science fiction from the 90s. Does that make any sense? If you know, you know. You know, it's very IYK. But oh my gosh, I'm getting wafts of it from behind the knee. It's so good. It's very time specific, but it manages to do something magical. It doesn't smell dated. And that is a huge accomplishment for a perfume. So to buy it in 2023, you're going to smell it. It's not going to smell like something dated in terms of, oh, something from 1750, you know, like we're talking, oh, okay, maybe I cannot find a way to this perfume. It still smells very futuristic. Still to this day, when you smell Eden, to me at least, when I smell Eden, I immediately, I'm in the future. I'm in a future that is very conscious of its past. Very science fiction. Oh my gosh, so science fiction. It almost has a metallic note in the opening, especially the reformulated version. It's a bit more screechy, right? And that metallic opening almost feels like you are entering a metallic spaceship and you're about to fly away somewhere. As you fly away, then that metallic tone subsides, and in that spaceship you discover where the garden is, because you're going to need to eat food of some sorts, and they've managed in this spaceship to find a way to have plants grow. And when you find that garden, you get all the ripey, fruity, floral smells, but it is a garden that's been synthetically altered to be able to grow in space, right? That's Eden. It's very futuristic, but with the aesthetic of the 90s to die for. And last but not least, I think we have our 9, right? We did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Number 10. Number 10. Oh yeah, Jesus says, Eden is an AI idea of a perfume. Yes, very artificial intelligence type of perfume. Eden might have been made in the past, but Eden is a perfume of the future. Number 10. I don't think you've seen this one coming. This one technically is a perfume from the 70s, but this iteration was released in the 90s. The first time ever that Chanel released the eau de parfum of Cristal, baby. The 90s version of Cristal is the eau de parfum. The eau de parfum of Cristal enters my top 10 90s fragrances this year. IYKYK to the utmost highest degree. Hashtag obest. 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 Vel says, period. It's what she deserves. Yes, this perfume, that's why I kept it as the last one, because the queen has a rivethith. And why? Several reasons. It's not an easy one to wear. You have to love your chypres. Jacques Polge in the 90s tried to soften Cristal, you know, because Henri Robert created the eau de toilette, heavy on the hyacinth. It's an ashtray of a perfume to die for. A divine chypre, really, crystalline ashtray is what I call it. But quite dry. For the 90s, you see, in the 90s, we have all of these vanillas going on, the new textures, the synthetic warm textures entering perfumery, the fougères that are kind of rounding themselves up. They're not screechy anymore. The fougères and the lavenders are turning more soft and more in tune with their emotions. So Cristal needed a reformulation. It needed some sort of revamping. It needed to be turned a little softer, a little bit less ashtray, and just give it a hint of warmth. You know, it's still very cold for a 90s perfume, the eau de parfum Cristal. But Jacques Polge said, let's find a new path towards Cristal. Let's give Cristal. Yeah, Jesus says, Rudnitska, you mean, not Jacques Polge. Yes. Rudnitska gave the melon to Cristal, which is coincidentally one of the notes that a lot of people do not like in Cristal Eau de Parfum. I don't mind the melon. I guess, what else are you going to put in this perfume to soften it a little bit, to make it less dry? Because I don't think that neroli or orange blossom would make this perfume softer. And I think doing too much vanilla would also turn this into something that it's not supposed to be. I was thinking of something that I would have maybe experimented doing if I were to reformulate this. I would try many different honey accords or honeysuckle. But the fruity melon, because the melon accord does give you a honey vibe as well, right? But it also gives you a fruity vibe. And that fruity vibe is what kind of softens Cristal, so I get it. But maybe I would have gone for like a dirty honey. Because honey goes well with ashtray, and it can still soften it in a way, an ambery touch. Yeah, just it's too much vanilla, and then you would get allure. In a way, you would. Allure, another gorgeous perfume from the 90s, by the way. But another one of the reasons why I chose Cristal this year is because it's been discontinued in several countries, right? So we know now that the eau de parfum of Cristal is no longer available in the United States. It's not even on the Chanel website anymore. They still show you the eau de toilette, but not, and the eau verte, but not the eau de parfum. The eau de toilette has been discontinued in Australia, I've been told. So distribution is very, very low at the moment. In Europe, you can't find it anywhere, even though Chanel sales associates always say, no, it's not discontinued. It's just on back order. There's some difficulties with apparently raw materials. So that's why I thought to pay homage to this beauty, just to kind of keep its memory alive. I thought it's a dignified new entry in the top 10 90s perfumes this year, just to kind of keep raising awareness about it. Because if we keep writing Chanel and saying, hey, girl, what gives? Where's the Eau de Parfum of Cristal? Maybe they might just reconsider, and they might just bring it back in rotation in those countries where it has been discontinued. So, yeah, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I mean, it's been a blast from the past. We've traveled through time. Look at us. We're in this 90s perfume salon, darling. Boy, these are beautiful memories. These perfumes carry so much heft with them, so much beauty with them for me, that I could just, talk about them all the time. And yeah, you best believe you better expect me to redo this video again next year or whenever I'm in the mood to do it, if there's some update to this list, because it's fluid. Things evolve, things change, maybe something else is going to make me obsessed with it by the next time that times are ripe enough to do another top 10 from the 90s. Let me know your top 10 in the comment section down below. And if you've liked this video, thumb it up and subscribe. Bye.